Welcome, everybody. Thank you. I want to thank Catherine Hausman and her team for putting this together. We did a nice job. The space, the food. Thank you. Headcount management, we're committed to helping companies grow vis-a-vis new technologies and any resources available. So we're going to be bringing more of these to you, hopefully, focusing on technology or any resources that we can find to help companies and agencies grow. So whether you've used LinkedIn before, whether you have a profile set up or not, this is going to be very, very effective for you. When I first started with LinkedIn, I had a profile, I fed it, nothing came out of it, quite honestly. And since I started working with Mark, I think it's tripled, maybe quadrupled, just naturally people looking for me and finding me. So I'm really excited about it. It helped me, hopefully it'll help you. So I want to introduce my LinkedIn mentor and coach, Mark Halpert.
And friend?
And friend.
Is that okay? Thank you. Thanks. This is an unusual presentation for me because we have a very mixed group. We've got technology people, attorneys, and HR people. So I'm not going to be able to speak to any one industry. If you want more of that, later. I will talk about some of the things I've seen in each of your profiles. Everybody, I hope, brought their profile with them. As we go through the elements of a good profile, I hope you'll be able to make notes on your own profile or take them back to your office or your home and actually implement these things. Because if I just tell you what you should do and you don't do it, you've wasted your time. And what I'm finding is, as I go and I make these presentations to people in all different industries, that these tips, tricks, techniques, call them what you want, are really working. They're really technologically driven as well as personally driven. So each of you has your own character, your own story to tell, your own niche in the market. And I niched out in my markets, I'm in different markets, ways to communicate with the people I think would find me interesting. That's what you want to do. You want to brand yourself. Catherine and I were talking yesterday. The law firm is trying to brand itself. The attorneys are trying to brand themselves. And you just want to be a little bit different than the rabble. To be found is one thing. To be interesting is the next step. So that's sort of the theme that we're going to use today. Mark came to me through a mutual friend. His profile was adequate. It worked. You can't make this thing not work. I mean, LinkedIn is designed to, anybody can make it do something, but you got to make it resonate. It's got to show his personality. And through a couple of sessions, one-on-one, he and I really reworked his profile in a way that made it work better for him. So we're going to talk about that. I'll show you the before and afters, and he's kind enough to let us show the before, and we'll certainly, you've seen his after. So here we go. So, whoops, I already did it. All right, so I'm an instructor in another institution. We use something like this, and I've already screwed it up. So let's see. You know what? I'm going to go this way. All right. First, thanks to Headcount and to Robinson Cole for having me. I really appreciate this. This is a great opportunity to talk to you really one-on-one, and that's the way I operate. It's not rehearsed. Every presentation is completely different. It's all attuned to the audience. So thank you, both of you guys. So what's wrong with this slide, this excerpt from my own group of LinkedIn friends? What is really wrong with what's going on here? Somebody's got to be brave to start.
You have no idea, so they're connected, but big deal, why are they connected?
Okay, good start. Good start. They're just connected. You don't know if they're going to do anything with it, you know, where the connection is. Anybody else want to take a stab?
They're connected to you.
All right, they are all connected to me. That's the only way I can see that. Now behind them are, you know, all the other people they're connected to. I can't see that. But what's really wrong with this slide is that they're just connecting. They're not doing what the next slide will show, giving opinions, adding to the conversation, putting links to articles or things that are going on. She's going to speak on a topic. She's creating conversation. She's traveling. He's commenting on someone else's comment. This is what LinkedIn is all about. It is the personal learning network that we all create amongst ourselves to add to the global conversation. That's one big takeaway for today. It's not just about, I'm connected to Julia and Julia's connected to me. That's boring. It's what we add and give back and forth. And Julia comments on my comments. She shows me things on LinkedIn. I show her things back. We've created a conversation that we've never met until this morning. And we've been doing this for 3 or 4 weeks now. So out of the blue. So this is what's really right about LinkedIn. It creates community. And that community can be within your industry. It can be within Stamford, Connecticut. It can be just any common interest that you share with other people. We all have many, many different interests. So some of the takeaways. What's a great profile? How can you tell people about yourself? How can you look for people? And finally, this is not a substitute for conversation. It's not a substitute for telephone calling. Those are still tools. This is just one more tool in your toolbox. I think it's a power tool in my toolbox, but you can't drive a nail with a screwdriver, so you got to use each tool for the purpose it's intended, but add to your repertoire. So 80 million people are in LinkedIn, greater than the population of Germany. 80 million people. 20% of the people on LinkedIn self-identify as small business people. All right, so that's a pretty good number. 1 million new people come to LinkedIn every single day. A lot of that is being driven from Southeast Asia, India. These are burgeoning populations. They're getting internet. They're getting the capability of communicating with the world. I'm coaching a guy in Abu Dhabi right now. I don't know how he found me, but I'm loving it. All right? I'm talking to people I worked with 10 years ago in Latin America. I haven't spoken to them in 10 years. It's not about picking up the phone and calling them because I couldn't really afford the time or the expense. But we're able to have these really quick little chats and communicate with each other. And I can ask them questions about things that people ask me, and I can tap into the people who are right in the field. Very cool. And LinkedIn is aggressively looking at new markets. New markets are just making LinkedIn bust open. They just opened a new thing for students, and I'm teaching at various universities to teach students how to network. Because students don't learn how to network. They just learn how to sit and regurgitate information. The idea is networking is a lifelong activity. I sort of knew that. It wasn't until about 10 years ago that it came to the top of my head. It's something I love to do, and it's something I practice on a continuous basis. But this has become a really great way for me to push that networking to a new level. And I do book business off of LinkedIn. So, great article in the New York Times just last week. If you have not seen it, go get it. It was September 30th, the social network that gets down to business, and that is exactly what LinkedIn is. It is not a place that you're going to say, hey, I'm sitting in Starbucks watching the world go by. It is not a place where you're going to post silly pictures of you and your pet or pictures of your kids. If it is a place you do that, you will quickly be brought to your knees because people will tell you that that's not what this is for. This is a community of business professionals who are working together and finding new connectivity. So get that article. It's a really great article. What is LinkedIn and how is it different than Facebook and Twitter? Well, article in Fortune magazine, March 25th. Get it out of the library. And it really talks about, especially you HR folks here, how to fire up your career on LinkedIn. And you probably saw it if this is your field, but this is a great quote. Facebook is for fun. Twitter has a short shelf life. If you really want to jumpstart your business career, get yourself on LinkedIn. And again, back to my earlier comment, just being on LinkedIn is not going to bring the world to you. You've got to work it. You really have to work it in a very intelligent way. And you'll get a lot of tips on how to work it. So the whole concept is, why me? Or why you? Out of the entire universe of people doing what you're doing. And I don't know anybody, never met anybody who's the only practitioner in doing what they're doing. So the idea is to rise yourself up out of the sea of everybody else and how to bring the focus on the specific value proposition that you bring to the market. It's the personality, it's the character, it's the work ethic, it's the brand of why you. Now we're going to pick on Mark. When we first met Mark, I first met Mark, this was part of his profile. It didn't tell me a whole lot about him. It was like he took his resume and pasted it onto LinkedIn. Bad idea. All right?
My website.
Took your website too
I
and
just
pasted it. Copy, paste, copy, paste. Now, what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, in hiring right now, a resume arrives on somebody's desk. The first thing that hiring manager is going to do is Google that person. Well, what will happen with LinkedIn when you have your LinkedIn profile at 100% is you will rise to the top of the results on the Google search so that they'll see your LinkedIn profile first under your name. And if you've worked your LinkedIn profile properly, the next thing they'll see is your LinkedIn profile. So it's this additive process, this complementary process, resume and character portrayed in LinkedIn, that makes a candidate shine. And the reason I know this is true is that I worked with my daughter, who bravely went out to Seattle, said, I'm going to Seattle. She just went out there, no job, found a job in this economy, college kid out of college, in 5 months. And when she got the job, she said to them, why did you pick me? And they said, well, frankly, we had 75 resumes. They all looked the same. Kid out of college, lots of great experience. It's a tough world out there. When we looked at your LinkedIn profile, we saw into you. We saw what you found wanting to tell the world is important to you. And that gave her the foot in the door. And maybe it got her the interview that eventually she, on her own, got the job. But it just gave her that little bit of push. So these are the things that I'm hearing in the market is what's going on. All right, so let's look at Mark. His headline tells me he's CEO of Headcount Management. Okay, but what's Headcount Management? He tells me where he's been. He tells me where he went to school. I see he has 255 connections. He seems to have two websites. Not sure why. Not sure what one is different than the other. And he talks a little bit, and this is coming right off his website. When we repositioned Mark a little, we gave him a picture so we knew what he looked like. And people want to know what you look like. And those of you around the room, and some of you don't have pictures on your LinkedIn page, you really should put your picture there. People want to see your face when they call you on the phone. People want to look at your LinkedIn profile with your picture on the profile when they call you on the phone. It really makes it a much more realistic conversation. We took that CEO of Headcount Management and we changed it to say who he is, not what he is. He is a temporary staffing expert providing employer of record, payroll funding, and key back office services to staffing firms. Aha, now I know what he does. Okay? Big difference. And this is the most common error in LinkedIn. If you own your own company, you want to tell everybody, I own my own company. I'm really proud of it. That's not important. They'll get that elsewhere. They'll get that here. Tell them who you are, not what you are. Okay? I'm getting ahead of? Sure.
On that title, I think we were using words that people might Google search using Google to find me. So employer of record, payroll funding, might be something someone would type in to find me. So I would rise to the top of the searches. So that's kind of, he had me position it that way to do that. So if you do a special type of recruiting, that's where you might want to do it. For say Steve or Michael, legal services, legal search services or whatever, financial, whatever.
Said in another way, there is a search mechanism on LinkedIn. So of the 80 million people on LinkedIn, and you want to do a search for people involved in employer of record, if it shows employer of record in his headline, and they search for the term employer of record, all the employer of record people are going to show in one search result. So not only will he be found on Google, he'll also be found on a LinkedIn search, which is a subset of the universe. All right?
I have a question, I'm sorry. A little detail, but I have a little summary like that, but it's showing under summary instead of up right under my name.
You need to go into view my profile, edit my profile, and go change that.
So there's a way to
Place to do that, exactly. If you want, we'll talk about that later. I can show you the mechanics of that. Okay. Now another thing Mark wasn't doing is he wasn't telling the world what he's up to. He just seemed static. He wasn't moving. I update my LinkedIn headline once a day, twice a day. Anybody update their headline today? Okay, typical. Okay, there's usually one in a bunch. Welcome. He's saying that he's part of the Inc. 5000. I think that's a very notable thing to tell people. I would tell people more than just there. I tell them every day if I had that in my business, but nonetheless, that is a really important thing. You can change this anytime, anywhere. I can change it from my cell phone, and I do. And people want to know what you're doing. Yesterday, one of my clients had its annual telethon, radiothon fundraiser. They raised more money in one day than they raised an entire year last year. I feel like I was part of that. I helped them do that in one of my businesses. And so I put that out on my LinkedIn profile to let people know, of the people I know, and I know about 800 some people in my direct contacts, what is going on in my world. Because this is part of the global conversation. All right? So that's good. That was a good thing, and change that often. We changed the two websites to actually identify what website was which, and he actually added a third. So he has a headcount management website, he has an employer of record website, he has a payroll funding website, so that people knew which website they were looking at, didn't just say my website, all right? This is something very, very powerful, very, very helpful. And finally, we gave him a LinkedIn personal URL. And if you don't know how to do that, if you have numbers and letters after your name, then you need to go into the LinkedIn search, type in personalized URL, and it'll give you the 3-second mini course on how to do it, and it's very quick. And I'll tell you later what you can do with that and how really good that is, important that is. Okay? And finally, he is now active. So not only is he putting news here, but it's tracking the history of the news that he is adding historically. So you can see in a real quick gulp what he's been up to. Moving down his ugly old page, we took this and we reworked it. So this is off his website, this is off his website. Specialties, I want to call your attention, this is the most valuable area on your LinkedIn profile, and is one of the areas where you really should be using Google keywords, because this is really, really very searchable. So spend time on discussing what your specialties are, research your Google keywords in your industry and what you do. This is where people will find you, bless you, find you in a Google search, in a LinkedIn search. Not in a Google search, but in a LinkedIn search. And then conversely in a Google search if they search you on Google. So here's some of the changes we made. We made this shorter, not on his website, it complements his website. We got him making and giving and receiving recommendations. And we'll talk about that later. We reworded things, but most importantly, we spent a lot of time on the summary and the specialties. And I think that's why you're getting found. And that's why the activity is coming to you. Instead of you going out and finding people, they can find you now. We also got him adding a lot of different connections, and this is off of my page, so obviously he and I are directly connected. Again, back here on his education, it says 2 companies, doesn't say which company is which. We were able to make those changes, and we really, really beefed up a lot of this. Okay, so he is a lot more interesting person on LinkedIn than he ever was. So you have, let's go back a step here, you have 2 profiles on LinkedIn. You have a public profile that if you were to Google me and we were not connected on LinkedIn, you would find my name, you would find my LinkedIn profile on there, and you would open that profile and you would see what I want the world to know, but a Reader's Digest type of version of what I'm all about. You would not, as a non-connection, be able to see who has recommended me and who my direct connections are. And we were chatting a little bit before we started here, and that is, I really carefully choose who I connect to, and I guard and protect the people I'm connected to. Because the moment I let somebody in to my connections who is either could be abusive, doesn't fit properly, isn't appropriate for the use that is intended, it somehow makes my trust with them wear away. It doesn't protect each other. So the idea here is to be sure that you're showing the world enough about you, but they can't get to the really core of who you are. I also put my marketing materials on LinkedIn for my connections, for them to see, to know what I'm doing, because they know what I do, I know what they do. We share this information. The whole world can't see that. So, and here's that personalized URL we were talking about. So see, there's no numbers and letters after my name. So really want to strongly suggest you add a personalized URL. So here is, if you Googled me, because I'm 100% completed on my LinkedIn profile, the first thing you're going to find under Google results is my LinkedIn profile. If you were to click that, this is what you're going to see. Now, headshot, here's what I do. My business is cash flow advocacy. I help businesses and nonprofits collect money using electronic techniques. And you're saying to yourself, what the heck is he doing up here talking about LinkedIn? Every 5 years, I rebrand myself a little bit. I did not expect to be teaching LinkedIn. Actually, a couple of years ago, I was sitting listening to someone else talk about LinkedIn after having been exposed to it 5 years ago, and I said, you know, this doesn't sound so interesting. I'm not into the social networking thing. It's not really something I do. And I began to realize that I could teach it better than anybody else who was teaching me, because I was getting business from it. And I have a story to tell. And I don't mind telling that story. So I have I'm schizophrenic, so I have two personalities. All right? So here's currently what I'm doing. I'm probably the only Jewish evangelist in the entire world. I am training people and businesses and nonprofits and all sorts of ways of speaking about what LinkedIn can do. But I also am a teacher, and I also own a business. So I've got many, many personalities. I'm about to add a fourth. It's a little frightening to me, but I'm keeping it all together in my own head. No one else can figure me out. This is what I used to do, not important. This is where I went to school, important. I have 16 people who recommended me, but if you don't have a connection to me through LinkedIn, you cannot see those recommendations. If you do have a connection to me, and I accept you into my connections, you can see who recommended me. I hold that very dear. Okay? And then I have more than 500 connections. I have 800 and something as of yesterday. I make it a point to know everybody that is in my connection group. I've met them, worked with them, dealt with them in one way or another. This is my core. This is the people that I hold very dear. And I have a website and I have a blog. Okay, so this is my public profile. Yes?
Is there any way to have a couple tiers of first connections? Because there's a lot of people that you meet that you might want to be connected with, but you don't know them that well, but they are in your professional world.
Good question. Not that I know of, but when you bring them into your personal connections, when you go to My Contacts, there is a way to sort them in your My Contacts folder. So you could have close personal friends and business associates as two stratifications. That's a good question.
Hey Mark, can you defriend somebody?
And yes I do. I have and I do. Yes, you can defriend somebody. There are reasons why you might want to defriend somebody. There are reasons why you don't want them to see what you're up to on a regular basis. All right? One of the things about making my presentation materials available is that I know that there are people who do borrow my materials and put their name on it. In fact, there's a presentation going on in a couple of days, and it looks just like my presentation. It's almost too close for comfort. So there was a person I was connected to, and I have severed him.
Right. And let me know if you need a lawyer.
Yeah. Well taken. Okay. All right. So this is my public profile, what the whole world can see when they find me. When we go to private profile, again, it's to this core, this trusted group of people who I hold very dear and protect, and they protect me as well. And it goes beyond just who I am, but it tells a lot more of why I am the person I am. What do they recognize in me that makes me interesting to them to put me in the trusted group? So it shows all my private connections to everybody else in my private connections. It shows what I've been doing on a regular basis. It shows who has recommended me. And I do put my marketing materials in there. They can all see it. So we're going to look at my private profile page. And it looks a lot like what you saw, but what's interesting is that some of these things, like the 500 connections, is now in blue. And you can click on that, and you can see all of my connections. You can open my websites. You can see that I'm on Twitter. You can do a lot more things. And if I had a lot more room down this down the screen, you would see all the other things that I open my world to. I show people. My marketing materials are available there. The PowerPoints I do, the white papers I do, all of the podcasts, the videos, all that stuff is listed and available for them to look at. So if they find me as an interesting person, they might be more interested in seeing what I'm doing and what I'm portraying. All right? So this is very important. It also allows you to see that my companies that I'm involved with have company profile pages. And if you don't have a company profile page for your own company, you really should. It's not a substitute for your website, but it is something on LinkedIn that allows your company to be searched and found as opposed to you being searched and found. So if you run a small company like I do, and I am part and parcel the same as the company, it's another way people could find me. They're looking for a LinkedIn trainer anywhere in the Northeast, they're going to find me. They might not know my name, but they're going to find me through a search. So what do great profiles have? And this is, the time you want to start jotting this stuff down. Like I said with Mark, he has a great headline now. It tells me who he is. It tells me what he is all about, not what role he plays. All right? So if you're an attorney, you want to tell people what your specialties are. If you're in HR, you want to tell people what your niche is. And you want to choose those words carefully, and you only get 2 lines worth. You don't get a lot of space on LinkedIn. And it's a real challenge for people like me who are schizophrenic and have a lot of interests. All right? So I really have to work that. Remember that anything you put up on LinkedIn, you can change at any time. You control it. It's not like you have to go to your web designer and say, hey, would you change this, would you do that? You can change it in real time, and you can see it, and you can make a change down the road. You should update. What are you doing? Yet last night, I went on LinkedIn. I said, I'm speaking to a group of HR and legal professionals about how to use LinkedIn to further their businesses. This morning, there was an article that I liked. Thank God Verizon is now going to have an iPhone. I put that up there to tell my world, hey, this is important to me. All right? Hooray, finally. Okay. I rework my summary, my experience, my specialties a lot. And I use keywords from Google to be found. And I have a photo, an appropriate photo. It does not have to be a headshot. In fact, I'll show you some great photos in just a little while. Why photos? Well, we said that. People like to look at you. Another reason I use photos is, say I'm going to go to Grand Central, I'm going to meet somebody at the clock. I want to know what they look like. Because the worst thing in the world is looking around. Is this the person? Is that the person? And they're looking for me. If we know what each other looks like and it's a good photo of what we look like, then it's going to take a lot of that ice off of the meeting. So this really becomes quite a valuable thing to have as a great photo. Okay. I have 838 connections. Yeah, I do. I know every one of them. I really do. I'm really lucky. 838 people know 118,000 people. So when I have a question and I put it out there to my 838 buddies, potentially 118,000 people are looking at that same question. Or they might know who to point me to. All right? And those 118,000 people know 4.5 million people. That's pretty amazing. So let's talk about this a bit. The strength of LinkedIn is not necessarily who you know, it's who they know. Story. There's a club in New York, and a friend of mine is the treasurer of the club. Big club. You'd recognize the name, and I'm not at liberty to tell you the name. But they said, we want to have a credit card with the club's name on it, so that every time the members of the club use it, the club gets a little money, and we're pushing our brand out there. It's being seen a lot more places. I said, okay. And they said, what do you know? Who can provide those cards? I said, well, first of all, that's not my area. Yeah, I'm in credit cards, but I'm in the acceptance of credit cards, not in the issuance of credit cards. But I'll look around as an accommodation to my friend. So I asked my 838 people. I didn't get a single answer. I thought that was kind of funny. 6 months later, I got an answer to my question from a friend of a friend, one of those 4.5 million people. He had the answer. In Belgium, he understood 6 months later I had a question that he could answer. He knew it because his business in the United States had just run across the same question. He saw the question that had been out there. I don't know how it got to him or who he is or who he's connected to, because he's way out in like 3rd and 4th degrees. But I was able to provide that club the answer. They thought I was a genius. And it's not even my area of expertise. So you don't know who knows who out there. It is such a rich area. And everybody's helping everybody with no expectation of getting anything back in return. It's that pay it forward thing. And I really, really, really subscribe to that. And I've seen it over and over and over again. Yeah, it's nice to help somebody, but you just don't know how you can help somebody until they ask. And you have to ask. All right? You have a question, you ask. If you don't get an answer from your 838 people, I'm involved in 50 groups. So I have access to millions of people in my groups. And I can ask that specific question to the payments area groups, and then I might get an answer that way too, if it bombs and doesn't work out from the 838 people I know. Taking this slide another way and showing it, this is me. This is me right here. This is Mark. All the people Mark knows, that's a lot of you guys, are there. And all the people you know are out there. So it's like you throw a rock into the river, and it gets wider, and the stream gets wider, and it gets wider. And it's not as close from where the rock falls in the middle, but the energy expands. And I use that example because it's the best way I can convey it. The number of people and the expertise that's out there continues to amaze me. It's just got to find the right people. So you got to find the right connections, and once you connect to them, you now have connections to their connections. So we made your profile look marvelous. Now what do you do? All right? Well, first of all, you keep making your profile better and better as you go along. If you see other people's profiles and there's a word in there or a phrase in there and you think you can co-op it into something that might reflect properly on you, that's a good thing to do because it's all about learning. So how can you find other people? First of all, what else you do with LinkedIn is you give and get recommendations. Now, we have all been trained not to ask for recommendations. It's like, it's a horrible thing. It makes you feel small. We've been programmed that way. LinkedIn is designed to allow you to ask for recommendations in a very simple, non-confrontational way. You just send them a note on LinkedIn. And then they can write you a recommendation. And if you don't like what they wrote, or there's an inaccuracy in it, or there's a typo in it, God forbid, you just go back and say, hey, could you fix that? So I have a client, nonprofit, and I asked her if she would write a recommendation for me, because out of like in a day or two, we did something that usually takes us a week. We really pulled out all the stops. She came to me at the last minute. She was amazed. She said, this guy's amazing. She wrote me a recommendation. It had typos, and it just used the wrong terminology. And I went back to her. I said, you know what? Thank you so much. However, how about if we change a couple of words instead of this to that? It's a little bit more accurate in my industry, the jargon, this to that, change that. Okay. And I said, why don't you run this through spell check? And she did. And it came back to me, and then I posted it. You don't have to post a recommendation until you're really happy with it. Once you post a recommendation, you can always hide it. So let's say you're working with a company, and they gave you a recommendation. And down the road, you work with that company's competitor, and you don't necessarily want them to know that the competitor has recommended you. You can hide that recommendation. And you can pull it back up when you're ready for it. Giving recommendations is a noble activity. Better than just giving is just, why don't you surprise somebody with a recommendation? Now, my MIS guy who helps me with my computer helps me a lot. He helps me a whole lot. And because I have some of the darndest things happen sometimes, and he helps me right on the phone whenever I call him. I think that's laudable. I think that's amazing. So one day he helped me, and it was a particularly difficult problem, and he said, this is hard, but I'm going to get it done with you. And we did it in about a half an hour, and I wrote a recommendation. He wasn't expecting it. Now, the next time I call him for help, don't you think he's going to be really anxious to help me? Because I was able to put another recommendation on his website, on his LinkedIn page. So it's really valuable. Openly recommend people you think are worthy. Now, if you're out there in an industry and you have 100 different recommendations for almost everybody in the industry, then you've watered down your capabilities. So choose who you're going to recommend in a very logical way, but please do openly recommend people or ask them if they'd like a recommendation from you, and then you'll write it. Okay? Remember that whatever they write for you or you write for them is subject to change.
Mark, earlier you mentioned you hide your recommendations, or you don't have them available on your public.
On my public
so
page.
Someone links in with you?
Right.
What's your logic on that? I'm just curious.
I don't necessarily want everybody to know who I've worked for. It is, when I get a recommendation, it's a very personal thing. If they want to know more about me, I can then copy and paste that recommendation off of LinkedIn to an email and say, well, this is what some people have said about me. I think that's the best way to proceed, because you don't know who's going to use it for what purpose. Is there a question back here?
Yeah, very often you see mutual recommendations that have been done within a day of each other.
Right.
To my thinking, sometimes it kind of dilutes the value.
Right.
You know, it's like, okay, we just finished this project, you did a great job, I did a great job, let's write recommendations. What is kind of the overall sense of that?
I call that the Mutual Admiration Society. You know, it's John recommended Mary, Mary recommended John. They appear one over the other, you know, in my daily feed. It looks foolish. It doesn't look good. I'd give it a week. I think people forget after a while. I mean, it's nice to co-recommend if that's appropriate. You don't have to feel like you necessarily have to recommend somebody because they recommended you. It's not like this like thing that goes on or retweeting that goes on or following on Twitter. It's just, you do it in the time frame that you think makes sense. But I think a few days to a week makes sense. I have a slide like that. I left it out of here, but now I'm going to put it back in. So.
Is there a way to get a recommendation from someone who's not on LinkedIn?
No. The idea is this is a recommendation amongst your peers in the community. So if they're not on LinkedIn, urge them to join LinkedIn. Okay? Be an evangelist. Not a bad thing. Okay. Show your stuff. There are different ways to show your stuff. There are two applications, and we'll talk about some of these applications, the other ones that are going to be especially interesting to some of you guys at the table. But if you do PowerPoints, and you can see I'm a big PowerPoint guy, I put some of my PowerPoint slide decks in what's called SlideShare. SlideShare is an app. It is part of LinkedIn. You can invoke it, open it up, add it to LinkedIn. You can add to it any time. You can take stuff out. You can make changes. It just works right off of your hard drive. It's very, very simple. What's nice about it is it doesn't destroy the work you put onto your slides, because sometimes when you put some of these slides into a different app, it mangles them. It doesn't. It does a really good job. It's very social media friendly. However, it's only for PowerPoint. So I do things other than PowerPoints. And if somebody opens it or reviews it, you don't get a notification. Now that is different than BoxNet, which is right here. BoxNet is another app on LinkedIn. It is multimedia in that it takes everything. So here you see I have a Word doc. I have this is a video. I have my PowerPoints. I have a web doc, which is off of Google. I have a lot of different types of presentations up there. You do get a notification if somebody opens it. You don't get a notification who opened it, unless you pay for LinkedIn. Now the question that's going to come up is, when do you want to pay for LinkedIn? Everybody has a different need for LinkedIn. You can pay for LinkedIn on a monthly basis if you want to know who opened your doc. If you want to use more in-mails, which are these direct emails through LinkedIn, more than 5 a month. There are other benefits for paying for LinkedIn. There are different levels of the product. So you can look on the LinkedIn page. They're very happy to tell you what you get for the money. I don't pay for LinkedIn. However, people in the search industry, I understand, do pay for LinkedIn because they are paid to know lots and lots of people and have access to lots and lots of people. That's fine. If it works for you, it's fine. Commercial real estate, residential real estate people typically are in the same situation. They're paid to know a lot of people, and so therefore they pay for LinkedIn. Okay? But I have not paid for LinkedIn. I just, as my point, I know if you want to join more than 50 groups, I don't know how you need more than 50 groups. I'm in 50 and it's overwhelming. I just test it all the time to see, you know, how crazy do you have to be, or how crazy will it make you to join 50 groups. If you want to join that 51st group, you have to pay for LinkedIn. Okay? This, I think, BoxNet is just unbelievable. It's a great tool for me. It will provide you a URL. It doesn't really show here. It's off on the side, which you can copy and paste into an email. So if I meet somebody new and I have a specific presentation I want them to see, I will say, hey, it's nice to meet you. You and I did this. Hey, Julia, nice to meet you. This is who we are. If you'd like to see a little bit of some of the samples of the work we've done, go to this URL. It is a BoxNet URL. and she can see the material that we do. And when she opened it, I said, oh, I just sent the email. Oh, she just opened it. She must be a hot prospect. So you sort of get the timing thing. If she doesn't open it till next month, then I said, well, okay, you know, maybe someday she'll open it. How can you find clients, vendors, colleagues, old friends, old people you used to work with, old teachers, whatever? I mean, there's a lot of different ways. First of all, this is a database of 80 million people. Not small. And you can get lost in this database. Yesterday I was talking to somebody and she said, I looked up and it was 2 hours later and I was late at night and when the sun went down and dinner was over and oh my God, I got lost. And we've all done that, right? So use the search really smartly in an intelligent way. There are ways to make the search give you more of what you want. Example I'll use is a friend of mine called me. He said, I have a nonprofit organization that is looking for a director for the board of directors. They have to be knowledgeable about environmental issues. They have to live within 25 miles of Fairfield, Connecticut. And they have to this and this and this. They have to have a higher education degree. He said, where do I start? I said, okay, let's do it together. So we went into LinkedIn. And at that point, there were only 60 million people on LinkedIn, so it was an easier search. And we found 5,810 people who matched those criteria. Now, obviously, we couldn't take that to the nonprofit and say, here's a list of 5,800 names, why don't you go talk to all of them? We kept working the search down. We kept refining the search. And the more we refined it, they eventually found that one person. And I'm really happy to be able to help them. Next week, I'm going to visit with that nonprofit to go call on them for business. So it doesn't always happen right away. You don't always get that invitation to come in. They do remember when you help them out, and this is one thing that I found LinkedIn to be helpful for me. So when you're looking for people, you're trying to find names. You're trying to find people who worked in companies you worked for, people who graduated from the colleges or universities that you went to. You can find them. And then you can send them a note to connect if you think that's appropriate. But if they don't respond right away, don't badger them. That's just not nice. I get a lot of that. How come you didn't respond? I get people who connect to me, want to connect to me, I don't even know. And if they call me Mark W., I know I don't know them, all right? That's just what LinkedIn does. They're just using the default thing to link to me. So here's what you write to them. If somebody tries to connect to you and you don't know them, what I write is, thank you for reaching out to me. I only connect to people who I know, do business with, or have association with. I don't believe you fall into either of those categories, so I'll respectfully decline. Thank you very much. I think it's easier to respond than not to respond, because then they start badgering you if you don't respond. And so when I put that out there, only once or twice do I get anybody who pushes me back. One guy pushed me back and said, you don't know how lucky you are that I tried to connect to you. Pfft, he's gone. I don't want to hear it. I'm not interested. One guy said to me, well, I'm in commercial real estate. You never know when you need to change your office. Well, my office is in my house, so I'll know when I need to change my office. So these are people who don't have any clue about me. And so obviously they're just out there fishing, trying to add names. Yes, question over there.
It was very easy to send a personal note along with a request to connect.
Wow, they changed that. Yeah, they changed that. So what you do is you ignore it, click ignore, all right? If you click I don't know this person, if they get enough people saying I don't know this person, they're banned from LinkedIn. Just ignore it. And then what I do, I ignore it and then I send them an email out of my own personal email. And that is the end of it.
But when I requested to connect to someone, I used to be able to say, great to meet you at such and such.
Oh, you certainly can do that. Still do that.
It doesn't give you the option when you...
After, we'll talk about that after. I'll show you live, okay? Mostly don't be, I love this word, a promiscuous linker. All right? They get a reputation. If, however, in your industry, you're paid to know a lot of people, at least know people in the right places. And tell them why you're interested in linking to them, connecting to them. All right? They always want to know what's in it for them, okay? I usually work it out to what's in it for the both of us. If you and I link, we could perhaps share notes, we could possibly sit down for coffee and find ways we can work together mutually. And people are very open to that. It's a good use of everybody's time, all right? If you don't know somebody and you really need to get a hold of them, you can ask for an introduction. Now this is all right, work with me here. This is a little hard because we're coming in at the end of this routine, and I'm going to show you how it started. All right, so we're going to read from the bottom up. This is an eye test for you guys in the back. All right, Richard wants to meet Miggs. Richard wants to meet Miggs. Richard said, hey Miggs, I'm a recent resident of Westport, found you on Westport Now, I like your work, would like you to critique my photos, here's my website, looking forward to your reply. So Richard sent that, Richard goes on LinkedIn, looks for who does Richard and Miggs know in common. Richard found that he knows a guy named Bruce, who knows a guy named Mark, who knows a guy named Miggs. So Richard sent it to Bruce, and Bruce sent me a note, said, hey Mark, Richard's asking me to connect to Miggs, would you pass that along? And it works. It really, really works. And I've made some really great contacts this way. There's one guy in a very large organization I'm trying to get a hold of. He's the decision maker. I met somebody who's a first level connection to him. I asked him if he would introduce me. He said, yeah, and we're working on that. It doesn't happen immediately, but this is one facility that LinkedIn really allows you to find some really great people you might not normally have contact with. Groups. There are 750,000 groups on LinkedIn. Only once in my career has anybody ever said to me, I have never been able to find a group that does what I want to do. So they formed a group. So groups are amazing. So when you join a group, only go to the groups that interest you, or you have value to give or receive. All right? When you join, contribute in groups that you think you can help with. In groups, and what happens in groups, there's a lot of question and answer in groups. There's a lot of things that are going on in groups of advertising, promoting what's going on, events, that type of thing. Groups are very, very powerful. I did not have time to look into the number of groups that have to do with the legal or the search firm industry, but I'm sure that there are thousands of them. All right? So if you're interested in what's going on in your alumni association, there's an alumni association LinkedIn group. There's a LinkedIn group for the Stanford Chamber of Commerce. There's a LinkedIn group for lots of things. I've formed 10 groups myself. I have a group of my own clients. So I can speak to my clients just within that group. Hey everybody, here's a cool article you might find really interesting. Hey, here's something I came across. Hey, here's a project I'm working on that you might find interesting. Maybe you can pull something from that. And there's a lot of conversation that goes on in the groups. When you join a group, figure out how frequently you want to have contact. Rule of thumb, depending upon the group, join and get contact weekly. Find out in a weekly digest what's happening there. If you find that it's really speaking to you, it's really giving you some great stuff, change that to daily so you don't miss any opportunities. There are business opportunities in these groups, and they can be found. When you join a group, do not be a wallflower. Do not sit there and watch it all go by. You're just wasting space. Get involved. Participate. Ask questions of the group. Because who are you asking? You're asking the experts or people who have expertise you need what their experience has been. Answer questions that other people have. Join the fray. I'm amazed at what goes on in these groups. Some of them are more active than others. If you find a group is not active and not giving you what you want, get out. And find another group. And if you need more than 50 groups, you've got a lot of time on your hands. But there are people who have many different interests, so it's great. It is a great communication tool. The more people see your name in the groups, their face in the groups, they might be more apt to connect to you or request a connection, or if you're going to a conference that they might be at. I did this with a guy, and he turned out to be a great contact. I saw that he was in one of my groups. He's an active answerer of questions. So me, he's saying, well, he knows stuff I don't know. I need to know this guy. We were going to a conference in Westchester. It didn't start till 9 o'clock, and you know what the traffic's like going down to Westchester, so I left extra early. I had time from 8 to 9 o'clock. I said, hey, I see you on my group. I see that you answer a lot of questions. I have time between 8 and 9. Can we grab some coffee together? We did. Turns out we have 4 friends in common I didn't even know about. I've referred him 4 times to different people. He has gotten business from me because I made the effort to connect to him. So he is a really good contact for me. And I work that contact a lot. And he sends me people as well. Groups as well, limit of 50, like I said. You can create a group in about 3 flicks of a switch. It's very simple. And finally, within a group, you can create subgroups. and task forces and committees. I work with the Women's Business Development Center, and I'm on their marketing committee, and we've created a LinkedIn group where the marketing committee talks amongst ourselves. It's really powerful. The downside to groups and to LinkedIn in particular is that you can't add a Word document or a PowerPoint or an Excel spreadsheet. You have to go create a URL out of it on Google Docs, and then you can add it. Now, if you know how to do that, it's fairly simple. It goes pretty quickly. If you don't know how to do that, someone can show you very easily. But that is, to me, probably something that they should be working on, to make it very fluid, to just drop a file in, not drop a URL in. Enough said on that. And I did, like I said, create a group of my personal clients. My personal new clients love being invited to a LinkedIn group of my existing clients. There's always conversation on the page. They feel like they've been brought into a group of people who know other things that they need to know. So, and it's turned out to some good connections. I posted that New York Times article in one of my groups, dropped the URL right here. Danny Flores, who I do not know, saw that in this group that we share. She liked it. She shared it to other people. I wrote back to her, glad you found it useful. I really think it's a great article, reinforces some of the themes that I like to portray in LinkedIn. There are other conversations that have occurred since then. It has now appeared on Twitter because people on Twitter who follow Danny have now started following me and following the things that I'm putting out on LinkedIn, as well as in this group in particular. So it has now gotten me some more notoriety in this group, and I always want to be a professional speaker on philanthropy. So it's really just sort of, just by placing one article on there, caused this conversation. And I'm amazed. And not everybody reads the New York Times. Danny, I think, is in Minnesota, so she's obviously not reading the New York Times. Yes?
Regarding the Twitter feed using LinkedIn, there are a couple of people that I'm connected to that appear to do nothing but post to Twitter all day. And essentially glom up all of that status and activity update chunk. Is there a way to selectively post your tweets? I mean,
not on LinkedIn. Not on LinkedIn.
Unless you copy it into your status update?
Well, after this, I'll go back a few slides to my private profile. There's a place where you can put your Twitter name on there, and there is a place where every time you put a status update, there's a box right next to the Twitter logo. If the box is checked, it will definitely go to Twitter. If you uncheck it, it will not go out to Twitter. So you might ask your friend to start unchecking that, because you, like probably many, many others, are very upset by the number of Twitter feeds that are appearing on your LinkedIn. Okay? It has to be used smartly. The control is there. She just has to remember to do it. And probably if she's tweeting all day long, she's probably paying somebody to tweet all day long. There are people who tweet all day long. Tap into great expertise in your groups or in any contacts that you have on LinkedIn. Ask those really meaty questions. How do you tackle this? Or how would you handle that? Open-ended questions. Yes or no questions go nowhere. All right? There's always something in the back of your mind or something you're working on with a client. You just don't know where to turn. Put it out there. You don't have to tell everybody who your client is and what the situation is, but give them enough information to give you information back.
How do you ask those questions to your network or segment your network?
You can't really segment the network. You can ask your connections the same question.
And how do you do it? Is it like connect all, or send like an email out through?
I would just do it in my headline. I have a question. Does anybody know how to do this? How do you do that? All right.
And
There is another.
See that?
They would see that in their
updates?
LinkedIn updates.
Okay.
And if they're reading it every morning, like you're going to start looking at it every morning, they're going to answer you when they see that question. If you want to ask that question in a group, you can go to the group area. And there's an area where there's a tab in the group where you can ask questions. They do not want you to be promoting events and speaking engagements and books you're selling and this and that in the question and answer part of the groups. There is now a tab in the groups for promotions. And I tested the water on that with one of my groups, and I got my face slapped for putting a promotion elsewhere than the promotion area. So other people do it. Why don't I do it? Why not? Well, I get sent over to promotion. So anyway, you just got to learn the etiquette of the group, and every group has its personality.
Mark,
Hmm?
if you're a recruiter and you have a hot job you want to work on, is that where you put it?
Yeah, I just saw somebody did that. One of you did that yesterday. There's a job, and you had a Bitly. It was you. It was really smart, because now people are going to look at it and going to get their attention right away.
So that was done in promotions or in like the update?
That was done right in her update on her page. That was good. That was good stuff. When you ask an open-ended question, like my friend Mitch did, people will answer. When somebody else asks a question, I will answer. This guy wanted to know, does anybody know somebody who does this? I said, yeah, go see my friend Casey. And here's the website. Tell him I sent you. So I'm not just saying, yeah, here's the website. I gave him a name, and I gave him my name to use when he calls Casey. So it greased the skids for him a little bit, got him in a little bit more closely, gave him some more information. Here's a company profile page for my company. This takes no time at all. You can create these pages very quickly. I use the blurb from my website. It has my picture. My blogs are connecting there because I've allowed that to look for my blogs. It has my website, the industry I'm in, and a little bit more information. Not a lot here, but just enough to get found. I have booked a gig off of this. And it's paying. I like that. That's cool. Events. Now this is event season. Everybody's going to conferences, you know, the big rush to the end of the year. Tell everybody about events that you know about that would be worthwhile. Tell everybody that even though you can't attend, you guys ought to know about this. If you are presenting or are attending, try to meet them. I've seen lots and lots of events where people will say, hey, I'll be in the wine bar at 5 o'clock on Monday. I will be wearing a red tie. Anybody who wants to come sit down and have a glass of wine with me, let's sit down and talk about this topic. Smart. Otherwise, everybody goes back to the hotel room and calls mom or calls their wife or their husband. Use the time to pull the expertise out there. And that guy who did that, I asked him, how many people did you meet? He said I had 15 people. That's pretty amazing. 15 new connections who share his common interests. Comment on the events. This is a great event. I can't attend, but I have heard Nye speak before. She's an amazing speaker. You need to know more about her, so try to attend that event. That type of thing. It's this viral marketing at its finest. It's free. Who blogs? No bloggers? Okay. I blog. A lot of people I know blog. My blog is here. Everybody else I know, this damn thing. Everybody else I know blogs appears behind me. I can follow everybody's blogs. Everybody who I'm connected to can follow my blog, and everybody else I know is who blogs. It's a really valuable thing because people who blog are telling you something that they think you ought to know. If the blog is poorly written, it doesn't last. So the more people blog, the more people have viewpoints, you're adding to the common conversation. Again, back to that theme I was talking about. Now, the apps for SlideShare, BoxNet, BlogLink, some of the ones that we've spoken about before. If you go to the top line of your LinkedIn profile, and you go from the logo all the way to the end, to the More tab, and you click that More tab, you will see something that looks sort of like this. It depends on how many apps you've already added. If you've added apps, there will be a drop-down that will list all the apps that you have added already. Otherwise, it will say other applications. And this is, what I've done is cut and paste them all onto a small page, some of the applications that are out there. Attorneys in the room, there is lawyer ratings from Martindale-Hubbell, and there is legal updates from JD Supra. Very valuable. Creative folks, there is, did I put it up here? Yeah, Creative Portfolio. Brand new. My artists and my visual people love this. It allows you to put your materials out there so everyone can see it. All right? This is very popular, projects in team spaces, as well as the SAP bio, community bio. There's a lot of good stuff going on there. I've used WordPress. I tell people what I'm reading, and other people tell me what they're reading, and it creates conversation. We can follow each other's reading lists. There's a guy who runs an organization. I really respect him, and I really find what he's reading. He gives me ideas on things to read that I would have never found on my own. He's also reading books pre-publication. So that is kind of interesting to let me know what's coming out. And we compare notes a lot. You can poll your clients, you can poll your customers, you can poll your friends. A friend of mine just did a poll. He found out some very interesting information. We're working on how to respond to what we found out in the poll. Or was the poll really legitimate? We're going to re-poll to be sure that it's all being done properly. That we're not assuming information. So all this stuff is available for you out of the More tab right there. Okay, what do you do next? Well, you look marvelous. You got your recommendations. You join groups. You put your marketing materials up. You're answering and asking questions all the time. This is working LinkedIn. You're actually doing it. You don't even realize what you're doing. You're adding to the community. So now you want to do more of this pay it forward thing and tap into your group. The beauty of LinkedIn is that people can come to you and you can go to people because you're pre-introduced. So go out there and add to the number of people you're connected to. You never know when you'll need them. If I was driving along the other day, I was thinking about somebody, name popped in my head, I wonder whatever happened to Larry Mills, looked him up, turns out he's a banker in Los Angeles, turns out I have a client that's looking for some banking work to be done in Los Angeles. Just by coincidence, I put Larry together with my friend. But first I got back together with Larry. So it comes in funny ways, really funny ways. 6 tips, okay? You'll never see this anywhere else. Make an immediate impression. It happens every time, every day. I get a default, lazy, boring request to, I'd like to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. Don't send those. You're not interesting. Tell people why you want to connect to them, where you met them, follow up with them. So, hey Bob, thanks for the great conversation after the lunch. This is actually something I sent. There are ways that we can work together. Later this week I'll follow up on areas we discussed. So please first join my network as we increase each other's networking connections. I'll speak to you soon. And I follow up. Don't you think he expects that? Because I went a little bit above and beyond. You go to a conference, you go to an event, and you get a bunch of business cards. You can't remember who the heck is who. All right? So you go to LinkedIn. First you see their picture. I remember that person right away. I know what that person does. I remember the conversation we had. Okay, now maybe I'll be more apt to connect to them. Remind them where you met them, where you worked with them, because we've all worked with a lot of people in our various careers. And then reinforce why you, because when they look at your LinkedIn profile, they're going to see the character and the value proposition that you bring to the table. Good visual image. I'm going to take a step back here. All right, these are sort of the best of the best. Because having known these people, or knowing these people, I see in their picture things that tells me why they've chosen that picture, why this is a good representation of who they are. This guy, I just want to pinch those cheeks. He is just the greatest guy. He's fun, he's happy, he's got this SEG on his face I just love. And that's his personality, that's just Raj. She just looks professional and she's approachable. He's an attorney. He's on the phone, he's busy, but he looks pleasant. He's a management consultant. Somebody here knows Wilder Baker. Who knows Wilder Baker? Somebody and I share Wilder Baker as a common connection. Anyway, that's Wilder Baker. He's a management consultant. It's like you walked into his office and said, hey, Wilder? And he looks up and goes, yes. So that's a good picture because he's busy, yet he's approachable, okay? He's a public speaker. And that's what he does. And that's his personality. And it's a great picture of him. She's a performer, and she is just great fun. So she's showing her core in these pictures. Urban chic, e-commerce businesses in San Francisco in a loft. There you go, okay? And this one I love. It begs the question, hey, Shani, how'd you get your picture in the Wall Street Journal? So he's got a story to tell. Opens the conversation, all right? So people will look at you on the phone, look at your picture on the phone, they speak better to you, they communicate better with you when they can see your face. So everybody doesn't have a picture, please go out there and find a picture. It's really, really probably one of the biggest and easiest things you can do, and it's really, really valuable. Invest your time wisely. You know, we were talking about the database, you can spend 2 and 3 hours and not even realize where the time has gone. I set a clock, I set a timer. When I go out and I'm using LinkedIn, say at the end of the evening, end of the afternoon, I'm ready, I'm trying to decompress, I'm trying to get my act together so I can be a normal human being when I come for dinner. So I use LinkedIn as a way to connect. It's social. It allows me the ability to cool out a little bit. I set the timer. When the timer goes off, the bell goes off, I'm done. So that is a way that I manually or my own way have created a way to stop using LinkedIn. However, if I'm in the middle of a great search, I'm going to let the bell go off. I don't care. I'm going to keep working it because I don't want to lose my place. But mostly, I'm managing my time. I continuously tighten my profile. Every profile I look at, I find a style point that I think could be very interesting. I did not come up with the word evangelist on my own. Someone else is an evangelist in another business, in another industry, and I said, that's kind of cool. I think I'll co-opt that into what I'm doing. So like I said, I use that. I contribute to my personal learning network all the time. I comment on people's comments, I add articles, I answer questions, I ask questions, I keep the conversation going. And I'm always looking for connections that I can help and they can help me, because that's what this thing's all about. Finally, I use my profile URL everywhere, everywhere. Because if I drop a business card on the street and someone picks it up, so, oh, that's kind of an interesting card. I'd like to know more about this guy. He can go onto my LinkedIn profile and see my public profile, at least get a sense of who I am. I put it on the bottom of my slides. I put it on the bottom of my emails. I put it on both my business cards. I have it out there. It's everywhere. I don't use my website as often as I use my LinkedIn URL, because I can't keep up with my website as much as I can keep up with my profile URL. My phone has all my LinkedIn connections on it. I can email them. I can phone call them off of it. I can get updates from LinkedIn on my phone. There's an app. This is a BlackBerry, but there's an Apple app, iPhone app, as well as a BlackBerry app for LinkedIn, and you can dynamically update your headline. You want to send somebody information. You want to meet new people on LinkedIn. You can do it all on your smartphone. So you make the smartphone a lot smarter than it already is. Story, 2 weeks ago, I was sitting at a table up in Hartford. Somebody said to me, you know, I don't know how we're going to get to Dodd's office. We really want to understand some legislation that he's put forth. I wonder if anybody has a connection to Dodd's office in Washington. I said, hang on. Found Dodd's legislative aide in Washington through a friend of mine. And in 3 minutes, we had the name, the phone number, and the phone call was made. So you want to be a go-to person? This is the tool. Unbelievable tool. Matched with LinkedIn, you can have access to anybody, anywhere with a couple of flicks. Unbelievable. So that and they were amazed that I had that capability. I was lucky, I will admit, but however, it's just another story where I co-opt two tools, my phone as well as LinkedIn, together, and I had this contact. Okay? Video, video, video. You're going to see more video in the next months or year. Video is going to be everywhere. We're videoing now. Somebody said to me, well, how do I know what your style is before I engage you to make a presentation? I said, well, I have a video right on my LinkedIn page. So they ran the video. It's like a 2.5-minute video, because I just want to give them a taste, and I got the gig. So it's out there. It's available to you. If you use video effectively, you can tell in 2 minutes, 3 minutes on YouTube what would take pages and pages to tell. Picture is definitely worth 1,000 words. Video is worth 10,000 words. If you want to know how to add video to LinkedIn, go to tinyurl/2emjcc5. I put it in as a tiny URL because it goes, it's all over. I mean, it would fill up the whole page. So it's tinyurl.com/2em as in Mary JCC5. Great instructions on how to add a video to your LinkedIn page. So build community.
Go back a little bit on that.
Sure.
Please, thank you.
2em JCC5.
So you don't have to put it on YouTube and then download it?
You do put it on YouTube, and then you connect your LinkedIn to YouTube.
And that tells you.
And that tells you how to do it. Best instructions that I've seen on it. So, bottom line, build community. Pay it forward. You never know where it's going to come back to you. I've given you a bunch of stories about how things have helped me. Polish your profile. You saw what I did to Mark's profile. I can do that to yours if you're interested. But don't forget about meeting in person. It's still the most important way of pressing the flesh and getting the connection. But this is a way that you can add to, use it as a tool to augment, to complement what you do. It's a tool you need to use. It's a tool you need to know more about. And now, once again, what's right about this slide is that people are engaging in conversation in their own personal way. It's not just Mark's meeting Julia and Julia's meeting Mark. It's more about what can we do to help each other. And if I sound like I'm an evangelist, I am being an evangelist here. There's a higher level that we want to bring everybody to. But this will let you do it. Will it happen tomorrow if you start today? No. It took me about a year before I started to see some real benefit. But let's put us back 4 years. Not a lot of other people were using LinkedIn when I first started. So I was sort of an early adopter. If you jump into LinkedIn now, you will begin to see results in your own way. You can measure those results in your own way. It's a function of how you use it, how smart you use it. Okay? So I'll answer questions. This is what I do. It is part of what I've been doing. No one gets a degree in LinkedIn. God knows I did not go to MBA school to be teaching LinkedIn. My job and my life has taken me in a lot of different ways. But I love telling other people about it because I get benefit from it. And if I come across as sincere, it's because this is really working for me. All right? This is where I'm located. I do one-on-one coaching. I do group presentations. I do small webinars. I have a recorded 4-part session on my website that people who don't learn well face-to-face and want to do it at their own pace might be interested in. I am constantly exploring new ways to show people how to do it, and I get responses and stories and answers back. Thank you, you really helped me, like this guy's doing for me right now. So, thanks very much. Questions? Questions?
Anyone have questions?
Yes.
I'm a novice user at the moment, but that last slide you showed all the back and forth commentary.
Mm-hmm.
Where are those comments being entered? Are those all in the headlines that people have? Can you go back a slide? Back a slide. A couple slides. Yeah, that's what.
That's in the updates. This is the updates. Every morning, because I know 838 people, there's a lot of updates, okay? So every day or anytime I tap into LinkedIn, I will see everybody's updates that are going on, okay? You also can sign up for LinkedIn to give you a weekly compendium of all the updates that other people have done. I tend not to look at that because I see them on a daily basis. But sometimes once in a while I'll look at it and say, oh, I forgot about that one. I need to go back to that person. So they give you this ability to catch up a little bit. But this is the combination. I mean, you were saying, oh, I know Phyllis, and you know, we now have a connection above and beyond the fact that I know she went to Tufts, where my kids go to Tufts. Now Catherine and I have 2 pieces of connectivity. We were strangers up until yesterday.
I also know Biggs.
You know Biggs too? Okay, now we have 3. I mean, you know what? At the end of the day, everybody knows everybody. I'm amazed at people and how their connections are.
You know Kevin Bacon?
No, but does anybody here know Kevin Bacon? Because I'd like to meet him. Question?
When you're tweaking your stuff on there, can you turn off this updates? Because you don't want, just because you went in and changed whatever part of your education or reworded it or changed a word, you don't want that to go out as
Yeah.
an update.
You can change the parties who will see your updates. You can send it to everybody or you can send it to specific people. The default is to send it to everybody.
I think what she's saying, when she's editing it.
When she's editing it and you release it to LinkedIn, yes, you can change it to show everybody or show just certain people or show just certain groups. It's at your control.
Where do you edit that?
It's right just before you're ready to release it to LinkedIn, it asks you those questions. What they do in LinkedIn, I wish they didn't do it, they have these real small words that add, and they're usually in blue, which means there's more to connect. Keep looking for those things that before you release it to LinkedIn.
And you can show it, you can release it to no one. That isn't.
You can release it to no one as well, but I don't know why you would do that because you want people to know.
Well, no, if it's just a, you know, we're just getting it going. You might be changing it daily to get it right. You don't want everything
I
going
want to
out.
know that. I want to know you're active on LinkedIn. I want to know new things that you're doing. I want to see you actually grow through LinkedIn. Maybe I just have more time than most people. I don't know. But I want to see that you're growing through it, and that might create conversation that I might miss, or connection that I might miss if I didn't see it. Don't hold it to yourself. If you're putting it out there, you're telling people for a reason. Yes?
Is there any source besides yourself, of course, for some of the basics, like LinkedIn 123, either a book or online? Let's say I want to send a message to members of the group.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the things I want to do, and I haven't figured out how to do that yet. I don't want to do it unless I do it right.
Okay. LinkedIn's help function is really deep. Find the help function, and it allows you to search, and you can put it in there, and it'll give you instructions. If you don't see the answer to what you want, ask LinkedIn to answer that question, and they're really amazingly good at responding in real English to your real question with a real answer within 72 hours, sometimes 48 hours. And you think they're helping 80 million people, I think that's pretty amazing right now. It's not like they're going to send you a canned answer that isn't going to answer your question. They really answer your question. And they say, if this doesn't answer your question, please respond to us and we'll be happy to help you further. And I found out some really interesting things that way. There's a LinkedIn blog if you want to know what's coming down the pike from LinkedIn, or new news that's coming from LinkedIn. I've subscribed to their blog. There's another great blog called Mashable, which will tell you about a lot of what's going on in social media, social networking. There's lots and lots of them out there. But if you have questions, or ask your colleagues on LinkedIn, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that. Does anybody know how to do it? Open the conversation. Another question?
Okay, just closing comments. First of all, pay it forward. Recommend him. Let's make an honest attempt. Step forward with the LinkedIn world. Get on as soon as you get back, and recommend my friend Mark.
Thank you.
Number two, as I mentioned, we are committed to helping businesses and companies grow. I have a few ideas about maybe a next seminar using mobile to help grow your business. It's the next trend. So we're all getting these sales things on our mobile devices. It could be for you. I'm thinking about it. Link in with me. Tell me what you think. Also video. I have some contacts, friends that actually are working with recruiters and companies now. Perfect example. Client gets lists and lists and emails of resumes. Opens them up, sees one with a video. Hi, I'm so-and-so. This is the reason why I should be working with you. And this is what I'm about. 5 minutes, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 30 seconds. It's an effective way of marketing. So we're thinking about that for the next one. So link in with me, tell me what you think. I want to hear about it, and we're going to bring these people to you, hopefully right here in this office. So that'd be great. Thanks again for coming.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Oh, Mark has some cards over here. If you want his card and his contact information, it's right here. Please help yourself.
I need to go.